This episode is sponsored in part by PTZOptics. Why hire a camera operator when the control is in your hands? Visit PTZOptics.com for more information. And by NewTek, makers of the TriCaster TC1. Stun your viewers, not your accountant. Visit newtek.com for more information.
Well, hey there, guys. It's time for another edition of Salt Talk. I'm excited to be here. Glad to see that all of you guys made it out here. I see we have a few guests here joining us. Let me pull this up here before I get to my partner in crime today. We have Bob Allen. Greetings from Syracuse, New York. We've got Tim Oxley. Greetings from Indiana. We have over on Facebook, we have Carlos Phoenix. Missed you guys in Amsterdam. Good morning. We've got Christian Denville from Denmark. Wow, we've got a bunch of guys here, and as you guys are coming in, we really appreciate you tuning in. Joining me is a friend that I've had for quite some time. We've done a lot of broadcasting together. He's also involved in his church doing production. I thought it would be great to bring him in. He is an expert when it comes to live video production as well as content recorded. He's 3-time Emmy Award winner, Jeffrey Fitzgerald from JeffInHighDef.tv. Welcome, sir.
Hey, this is like bringing back the old gang, like the Blues Brothers. We got to grab Marty and we'll do a whole new series.
Well, I figured having you here and kind of giving your expertise into what we're talking about today, I thought, man, this would be great. People could kind of get to know you a little bit. And there's a lot of churches out there and houses of worship that just don't have that expertise. So why don't you tell a little bit about yourself for those that don't know you, and if they're looking for somebody that they can, contract with or somebody to help them with their setup inside their house of worship, you're the guy.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence there, bud. I've been blessed. I was the son of a TV producer growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and even in beyond. And so I have been in broadcast and live stream media for 40 years. This year, my first shoot, I found a photo of it actually on one of the very first shoots I did at 17, not a couple days ago, and I've pretty much done everything around the world of production you can do. I've done producing, shooting, directing, editing, all those kind of things. But beyond it being really all about me, the bigger thing is that, it's interesting. We've all found our way into this wonderful world of media that we really love. And at the same time, when you're, in the faith community, there's a calling on you. And so I think it's really amazing where you can partner this love that we've got for all the shiny knobs and buttons, but really learning how to tell a story, something that's really powerful and creative, even if it's just in how you put a show together, that there's creativity in that. And so I've been in this, like I said, for a long time. And, we were blessed. My company does production and live streaming, but I have a whole sub brand that's, as you can see, dressed in the fire department, where I'm really trying to help America's volunteer fire rescue stations and even police stations continue with the recruiting and stay alive and thrive and things along those lines. And the last 3 years we've been blessed with 3 Emmy recognitions, and it's something I never expected. But it's one of these things where those things sound great on paper, but it really isn't that different than anybody else. When you're being creative and you're thinking originally and you really learn how to tell a story, that's when those great moments come from, that emotional connection and how you do it. And so I'm just thankful to be here today.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on here. We've had a few more stragglers jumping in here, so I want to acknowledge these guys coming in here. We've got Michael Fierro Jr. Good morning. Good morning to you. We've also got Lane Slater from the UK. We've got Garrett Huey, and I apologize if I'm butchering everybody's name, but you know how I roll. Greg usually gets it down pat because he does a lot of work in other countries, so he gets it. Greetings from Emeryville, California. So, Jeff, we've got quite the diverse audience today from all over, but I'm hoping some of the stuff we talk about today and show will be helpful to everybody. It'll be interesting.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, I guess continuing this this thought about, we're talking today about audio, we're talking about production rooms, we're talking about video, that I want to just say right off the bat that it's great that, Steve, I mean, we've seen your CNN setup, I know I've got one, but the reality in this world is that you really don't need an incredible amount of gear to make an incredible impact. And so I just want to make sure that going into this, people don't think this is somehow like a gear totem pole that makes you, more functional, because how many of us have bought cameras we still don't know how to use, and we think more things make better products, and in reality, it's really just getting familiar with what you got.
And that's when I go to show this video of our church setup, I'll get into the preface of how we started and whatnot, and going into this area, because we didn't start like this, and I've been piecing it together. Budget plays a big role, so you're absolutely right. I do want to let everybody know tomorrow, mark your calendars, I believe it's at 2 p.m. Eastern, the PTZOptics crew will be live showing off a brand new webcam. So you definitely want to tune in for that. 4K, it's got some auto track. Trust me, you want to tune in for this. If you didn't see any of our IBC announcements, you're definitely going to want to check it out. So there's a lot of really, really cool stuff on the horizon, Jeff, and that plays right into your house of worship things. And so many of you guys don't know, maybe you do know, I also work as an assistant pastor, media director at our local church. One of the things that I was tasked with, Jeff, when I first came on board, I was more behind the scenes. I had been hurt in a ministry, and I just wanted to be out of sight, out of mind, but I wanted to do a lot of things in the back end just to kind of, be out of the limelight. I'm just going to be honest. So I had the ability to do that. So the sanctuary that we had, it's not a big sanctuary. It's about 150 feet deep, and it's probably about 50 feet wide. And we had this little, I want to say it was a 10 by 10 booth that if you're on stage, it was stage right, and if you're in the back, it was on the left, that we had a analog, I want to say it was a Yamaha mixer, and they were pretty decent mixers,
Oh, yeah.
We had a PC running song show, which always seemed to get a virus on it, from what they told me. And I mean, it happened. So the first thing I did when I came in, I switched them all over to Macs, and we haven't had a problem since with that. I'm not saying Macs are be all end all, but it did solve our problem in that sense. But that's how we went live. We took a Logitech C9. I think it was a C9
920.
I think it was before the 920s. I think it was the Logitech that had the little ball on the end with the long shaft.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what it was. But we put it on a mic boom arm with a USB adapter extension cable, and we just boomed it out over the congregation. That's how we went live with Manny Cam when we had the PC. When we went to the Mac, it was Cam Twist. So you're talking that now. That dates how long ago this was, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It's definitely bringing back some memories of Minicam, and that was the era when you could see the potential in streaming, but it was still it was like a car that had 2 cylinders. You're like, come on, let's go.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh man, we had to get a really good shot at the stage. People used to get self-conscious because you're always getting the back of their heads, and if they happened to turn around, they felt like, oh, you're invading their privacy. And it was in stages. I mean, I remember when we started going to multicam at the time, we had Wirecast, and we would run the pastor's son would bring his laptop. I would bring my laptop for the Wirecast system. The pastor brought his laptop, and we put them on. Do you remember the old carts that did the projectors?
Yep.
We put them on there with a camera that was FireWire, and used Desktop Presenter to grab it out of the Mac's built-in program photo booth, send it to the sound booth over Wi-Fi, so we'd have multiple cameras. And we did that for 2 years for a 3-camera. We thought it was cutting edge, man. It was.
Well, but you know what? You found a way to make something work. And I mean, I think that's a lot of the, I guess where my heart is in a lot of this, that there's a message. It's great to have nice things and all these little gadgets and gizmos, again, kind of like what I was saying earlier. But sometimes you can do something really, really meaningful with very little, and if you don't have it, you start where you're at, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole way it works. If you're going to get to the promised land, you got to take a step, right?
Well, exactly, and that's what we did. So I wanted to preface that before we played this video, so you guys can see like our workflow. And I will tell you, if the guy on the camera seems a little nervous, he is a little nervous. He's not used. He's my camera guy. When we go to trade shows, he's my camera guy. He can shoot phenomenal. But the roles were reversed this time. I said, I'm going to play the guy that has no clue, even though I wired it and I taught you how to put everything together. I said, if you get to a point where maybe you didn't go into something, he's like, what if I forget something? I'm like, that's all right. I'll just kind of coach you a little bit and be like, so what does this do? Because I wanted him to, I want him to take that initiative, because I'm training him to be the guy, right? As I get more responsibility, I don't have the time to really focus on this area. So he did a really good job, I thought. So I want to show you guys this as a not Jeff, you said it right, not as a bar set like this is where you need to be, but over a 15-year period, this is where we're at right now, and there's still a lot of work to be done as far as I'm concerned, but take a look at this, guys. All right, so we are here in the booth here at Shiloh Ministries. I'm here with Cody. Cody, why don't you kind of walk us through our setup here for Salt Talk, what we're doing in the booth as far as for live video?
Yeah, so every morning when we set up, well, not every morning, every Sunday morning when we set up here, we have an order. We have an order of things that tend to work best, and so we have all of our different systems here. We have our TriCaster system, we have vMix going on this computer, and this computer we tend to just run the live and our lights. What we like to do is we get the TriCaster up and running, we get all the cameras connected, we get them all going, they connect automatically, but we get them going, we get the views that we like to set going, we get vMix up, we get all the different connections coming into that, and then we get our lights up and running and the stream start to get it set up. We have Facebook and YouTube that are coming off of here and to our website, Shiloh Ministries. From in here, and then we also have in the other booth, we have ProPresenter.
And then we have the security up here, so you guys got a bird's eye view of that.
Yeah, we threw that up there because the people that are up here running the booth, they're kind of tucked away and hidden. So we like to be able to have them kind of survey what's going on in the church, because they're the ones that will be able to notify without anyone else. Being
so let's kind of go over your control setup here. You have a bunch of different controllers here. Why don't you explain to everybody exactly what we have set up here?
We'll start over here. This first controller here is our PTZOptics controller for the PTZOptics cameras.
You got the Super Joy?
Yeah. So we have some presets already loaded, but we have 4 cameras, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we, let's say we'll go to camera 1, this input camera 1 here is that. We switch to there, we can control that with the with the joystick, excuse me, and we already have some presets loaded. So if we hit 1, we can zoom in on the this one's for our bass player and a couple singers that are normally up there right now. They're getting ready for practice. 2 would be for the pulpit, and so on and so forth. We have several different presets, and that's for all of our cameras.
Okay.
And this is nice because it enables us to just have one person really just sitting up here. They can man the cameras, and they can control all the cameras that we have. So right now we only have 4, but we have plans to add more for maybe some on the stage to zoom in on the people as they're playing their instruments. But it takes the job from 1 person per camera down to just 1. Makes it much simpler.
And we got the TC1 control surface here, and so tell us a little bit about the Stream Deck and how we got that implemented here.
Yeah, well, the Stream Deck, we keep adding little things to it. We found that it makes things more streamlined. That's the word I'm looking for, streamlined.
So how are we interfacing this into the TriCaster and vMix?
So the Stream Deck's using 3 different. We have the vMix, the TriCaster, and excuse me, just the 2. The vMix and the TriCaster are both coming into here, and we're able to use the Stream Deck as kind of hotkeys for those different programs. So the TriCaster right now, the buttons we have on here are up to inputs 1 through 8, but we have up the option for 16. So we don't have the buttons on here. So we added them onto the Stream Deck. So we have, just like how these could go live 1, preview 1, we can do live 9, preview 9 on the Stream Deck as well. switch that.
And we're using a piece of software called Central Control. That's on.
Yeah.
I think it's actually minimized. There you go.
There it is.
There you go.
So in here we can map, we can tell it. So let's see, the Stream Deck. You know, these are our button feedbacks. So buttons 1. So if I jump down to, you know, button 20, that says we have the playlist audio, and that's what that correlates to. And I can, any of these buttons that are empty, you know, if I type in,
yeah, you can make it whatever you want.
You can make it whatever. I'm just going to name it whatever, and it would show up in there.
Right.
So that's, and then you can map it based on any of these programs, and that'll go back and forth between.
Pretty
the
seamless, right?
Yeah, it's very seamless. I actually just did one this morning. I made one for our ProPresenter program.
Nice.
So that
don't.
Oh, I didn't.
You'll be just minimize it.
Yeah,
You'll be like, no.
Yeah, too many programs running at the same time.
And then, okay, talk to us about this other machine. You have a bunch of light bars. It looks like. You have this control surface here, right? So what are we doing with that?
Yeah, so we have a small board up here. And what this is doing is running our lights on the stage. So we have the same buttons over here, but what I did was I mapped them to a small little MIDI board over here, and we just gave some quick little sketches on here, you know. But
nice.
We have a worship key and a preaching key that just makes the stage lights white.
Full text so we can see it, so
Yeah.
it changes on the software. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But even if you're catching up on there, you can see that the lights are changing. But we've got little knobs. You can adjust the color tones of them, and some of the buttons are make the lights pulse back and forth. We're getting a little more into those lights, trying to figure out the options that we even have with those.
So we talk about repurposing your gear. We actually had this a long time ago. This was our Wirecast using AppleScript to control Wirecast back in the day when we used Wirecast solely.
Yeah,
that's got to be, what, 10 years old?
Yeah, we had a scare last week because we thought it died, but the thing came back to life, so yeah.
Well, and we're in the process of this machine back here, the Mac Pro, and you'll notice there's a machine here. We're in the process of moving that, right? We're going to move that over to the ProPresenter machine.
The ProPresenter
walk us over that way.
So this computer was running ProPresenter, and that machine's probably, I don't know, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, it's old.
ProPresenter is advanced through that amount of time, and it's just not able to keep up with what we have going on. So we have a newer MacBook Pro that's temporarily running ProPresenter. We have Dakota here. He's running through our Sunday morning setup. As we get our worship songs in, he has to report them through CCLI, so that's what he's doing right now. But
so this machine will control what? They'll control the TVs.
This machine's primarily running ProPresenter, and that's what runs our slides in the sanctuary. So you see your two screens on the main screen, on the main stage. Excuse me. There's one TV that you can't see that's on the back wall here.
We'll see when we go down there.
Okay. Yeah. And that is that's like a stage display, we call it. So that allows people on the stage to see the worship slides, and whoever's preaching, they can see they're preaching scripture without having to turn around and look at the stage.
And what do we got here?
And this is our main soundboard that we have all of our instruments coming in through here, the computer volume that can go out to the stage. And all that ties back into the previous booth that we were in.
So this is a Behringer
X32.
X32.
Yeah, it's a common board that you see in a lot of churches. We have recently upgraded to this from a old dinosaur, a couple years ago.
And we have a wireless tally light system here that we use for the cameras, which we'll show you downstairs when you can actually see the other side, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go down and let's take a look at some of the overflow TVs and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure people are interested. Because we have the ability, we can send video. You and I have set it up to where we can send video just about anywhere.
Yeah, and that's also the plan of having, when we move that Mac Pro over, to be able to use that as more of a central server too, so we can send, as you mentioned, video streams to just with the click of a button to the different TVs.
So what do we have here?
So we have 3 TVs out here. You can see 2 right now, and there's one in the kitchen. Those are our overflow TVs, and that allows people that are not in the sanctuary that they can watch the live feed directly out here.
Down this way here, we have one, and this is our kind of our fellowship hall, right? So we've got
got one up there.
Okay.
So, and these are real time. So there's no delay on it.
There's no delay, and you don't hear anything because there's no volume in the stream right now because the worship team is just practicing. But we can turn the volume on, and those that are out here, the security team, if they're walking around, they can still take part in the message, and they don't miss anything.
And this is, I feel like this is a necessity. We've talked about this on the show. Is sometimes you have a funeral dinner, or sometimes you have a dinner going on after church. That there's a team in here, like they're going to be right now getting breakfast stuff together. They don't want to miss the service if they've got to come out here early, right? And you've got it set up.
And even Sunday morning. So we have our team in here that are just, I mean, you see cupcakes and stuff there. People are getting ready to set out the Sunday morning treats and stuff, you know, coffee. And they're able to watch the announcements because we have, excuse me, I don't have it on there right now. But we would have a countdown timer, so they're able to see when the sermon's about to get started. So they're not missing anything either.
Okay. And then we also have it set up, like, we haven't been doing it in a while, but we have the kids' room set up to where we can actually send video to you in the sound booth.
Yeah.
And show that.
With a mix of NDI, we can just turn, with the click of a button, we just turn things through NDI on into TriCast or whatever, and we can get the streams from all over.
So we have the PTZOptics camera up there. We have a network switch that's right there. And we also run ProPresenter in here. So essentially, you can get the mix of anything, and we do that so that we don't have parents busting down the door sometimes. They can see the kids' church is still in service, and we're not running into any problems.
That's right. Yep.
Anything else? People are probably wondering what our network infrastructure looks like, and you'd be surprised. It's very simple. If you want to take us, let's go to, I guess, to the office, right? That's where we'll show the. We don't have like a big server room yet. We're working on it. Is it locked?
Door's locked.
That's all right. So part of our security is everything is controlled via an app. As you can see, he's using an app that unlocks the door. We work on high security because during a service, you don't know if somebody's coming in or out. We can lock the door. So, yeah, this is the office computer.
It's the office computer, and all we have is just our regular modem and wireless router.
Yep. So nothing special here, folks. We have a switch up in the booth, but
our Ethernet cable running up, to the booth. But from there, we have our network switches that we have two separate ones right now. One goes up underneath the main booth that we were looked at first.
All right, let's go in and take a look at the cameras in the sanctuary, guys. I will warn you, it's going to be noisy, but you can. You'll still get to see it. They're, like I said, they're practicing, but we'll show it. So what do we got here?
That's a great example of the tally light. So right now this camera is the one that's live. You were seeing even on the overflow TVs. And then that'll track. Yeah, all of these cameras in here that you'll see, those are controlled by that PTZOptics board.
There's that TV that you put work.
Yeah, that's the stage display TV. So right now we don't have anything going through ProPresenter right now to code. It's working up there. But during worship, when the songs would be up there, you'd see the text up there.
Right.
But so red right now, that means that camera's live, and if it was in preview, you'd see a green light. So that helps the people that are on stage.
So this is our main camera. We've got one up there, and where else? We have
one on each side.
One there, right over there, and one over there.
The three last ones we talked about are the. Do you want to see the stage?
Yeah, we can go up.
Those last three are not auto tracking, but this our main camera is an auto tracking camera. So those on the stage, as they move around, it automatically keeps up with the tracking.
So I keep praising your name at the top of my lungs.
You can see us set up.
Tell me, is he good? He is good. Tell me, is he good?
I'm just showing this.
Yeah, SDI and Ethernet cable going into them. Are we going to try to go over to?
Well, we can kind of just peek in. So we have all the audio stuff back in there. So like our monitoring system, as you can see, they're all in here.
All in here.
They have wires hanging off the back of them.
Yep, everything feeds back into the main control center back there.
Right.
And it's all that, not the old large snake, you know, it's all through an Ethernet cable. You can even see the yellow cable running around. So that's one single line that feeds back into the barrier that's up there.
Yeah. And then we had the LEDs. These are the lights that he was
the
controlling
lights
up
we were
there.
talking about before. Yep, we have the 8 up on top. We got 2 that are up at the very top there behind the speakers, and we have some bar lights that are behind the
For the ambient glow.
ambient glow. That's
And then,
right.
like the holidays and stuff, you'll do some, different things with lighting on the back wall. You'll change it up a little bit. So
That's right. A little red and white for Christmas.
Well, guys, Cody, I appreciate you taking the time. Guys, I hope you get a lot out of this video, and we'll back to the show.
All right, guys. I know that was a bit of a long video, but Jeff, I know a lot of people watched the video that I did like 3 years ago on YouTube, walking through it. It's changed a lot from when we did that, but 15, it might be 17 years now, 15 or 17 years in the making. I mean, this is not something that happened overnight, and we're still not done, I
don't think it'll ever be done, right? I mean, we know that especially with video gear and technology, you can change the resolutions and things like that, but use cases change a lot too, right? In the early days, It's really, hey, how do we capture, the heart of the pastor's message? We're really trying to share something with the community, inspire people, those kind of things. And, lo and behold, great technology, like PTZOptics comes along, and we can actually do multicam. And not only do it, we don't need 4 people to do it. We can do it with one person, with a Super Joy controller.
Yeah.
And things begin to evolve a little bit. And so little by little, and you're right, you look back 15 years later, and you've got a lot of things going on. And one of the hidden things in that video we were talking about while it was playing is there's a lot of automation in play now. Automation is almost equal now with the video production technology itself in terms of the split between what a room looks like now. That used to be, you may have one little controller that was a MIDI controller, and everything else was something you were doing manually. Nowadays, you're literally hitting one button, bringing up a title, dropping a mic, all these other kind of amazing things. And so it's, the evolution is not just in the video world, it's really in how computers and automation are making things so much easier for everybody, especially volunteers.
Yeah, and we're going to continue the automation process. We have to move at what we have time for and things like that. I was talking to Jeff. Tom Willis in the chat room, he goes, hey, how do you adjust the audio if you're in an attic and not on the floor where the congregation is? And I told Jeff, I said, I knew somebody was going to ask this question, and it's a great question to ask for those wondering. Tommy, it's the same way that I kind of adjust the audio here in the studio. So you can see I have an iPad set up right here. It has all my settings, my faders. You can see I'm talking out of the mic here. It's jumping up. And if you talk.
Hello, check 1, 2, 3.
You can see Jeff's, and I color code it. So any show that I'm doing, if I'm only using 2 audio inputs, right now I'm using the live to air audio, and I use my mic. I color code it so I can quickly zone in on it if I have to mute myself to cough, or if Jeff sends me a message, it's like, hey, bro, I have to cough, and it's going to be a nasty one, and I quick hit mute, and then he'll send me a message, say, yep, I'm good. I unmute him. The same thing happens in the sanctuary. We have an iPad that controls not only ProPresenter, and we were getting started. I caught him off guard. We run ProPresenter, and we can run the Behringer X32 off of a iPad. So what he'll do is during the service, he'll stand down there. We have a person that sits up there and switches cameras, as you guys were seeing, but he'll stand down there with an iPad to make sure if he has to ride a fader on a lead singer, if he has to pull volume back, or if somebody's talking to the congregation and they're kind of soft spoken, he can ride that
Steve,
fader.
look, I don't want to call you out, but I think we need to be honest here. I know what's going on really. What you didn't show is that old fake mixer with the cables coming out of it, where everybody wants to come up in the band and mess with the audio all the time, playing fader tennis. Such a brilliant idea. Get a volunteer to just stand there acting like they don't know what they're doing, and let them do that all day long, and then you're upstairs in the Enterprise, It's a perfect way of doing it.
Yeah, no, that's probably what we should do in some cases, because I got a story about that coming up. Yeah, we had a gentleman, you guys know Joe DeMax, he makes Central Control. I'm going to get him on in the future. We really started implementing that when we were doing when I started doing this here in the studio, I use a Stream Deck to control vMix and the TriCaster because I'm kind of locked to my seat here in a sense. My vMix machine is over there. So how do I control bringing up chat and stuff? I have to have an automated way, like you were saying. So there's a lot of automation that you can do that will make your production easier, and we're slowly moving them. A lot of it is teaching him basics, right? Teaching him
That's right.
how the camera should be. He's doing really good with color matching and getting the cameras to look like each other, within the lighting scenarios. So it takes time. And then he's training other volunteers that are, if he's not there, that they can get everything up and running. And I just sit back. I could do it for them, but unless they come to me, I stay out of the way, because that's the only way you're going to learn is
Yeah, it's smart.
through the fire and the flames, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, you see this in every organization, whether it's vocational, whether it's the church, it could be the people I work with in fire rescue. Succession planning is something that everybody knows is something really important, but nobody really puts the investment in. And I actually, maybe I'm calling it out here too, I actually think a lot of times that can be insecurity because people want others to do well, but what's the old meme say? You never want them to do better than you, right? So sometimes we want to feel needed. And, the more we make other people capable of doing that thing we do, we feel like, maybe I'm not as important or whatever. But the truth is there's always a place for that experience, no matter, where you're at in your timeline. And so, I think what you're doing is the right thing, getting people in, letting them get their hands dirty a little bit. And if there's a little minor thing that comes up to them, it might be the end of the world, which is good. It kind of teaches them not to do that. But, you're kind of watching over them. And so I think that's a good plan for any church or any organization.
Well, and I know there's people of different religions that watch the show, but I can tell you from the Bible, it says that your gifts will make way for you. And so
Yes.
my view is always this. I always try to train my replacement when it's something in the church, because I always know if in order for me to get promoted, to move on, I can't be tied and have my hands in all these other places. So I try to teach and pass as much knowledge on as I can, so that makes room for somebody else that has a passion to drive it, and it moves me on and frees me up to do other things. So yeah, I don't look at it as like, oh man, now he knows as much as me. I look at it and I look at it as something like, wow, to see him run this now, I did something right.
Well, and I like the way you framed it too, Steve, because you're saying that you got vision for doing things that are bigger and bolder.
Mm-hmm.
And that you look at that, I think, in a healthy way, almost like, well, now we're capable here. I can try something maybe to move it in maybe a new direction that we haven't even thought of. And I said this before the show. I think so much of what we're seeing in the church in terms of live streaming is phenomenal, getting your community involved and getting the engagement. But I still think we're really in the infant stages of streaming in terms of content, because so much of the church focus has been on the technology because it opens up a new antenna that's digital. But we're not looking at new ways of actually sharing, the stories that we want people to understand in a way that's meaningful and maybe different and original. And so there's, I think what we know is maybe what we would call the pulpit framework is only one small component of a much bigger story there. And I think as people evolve and grow and teach, some churches are breaking out of that and doing some really cool and innovative things to really bring the stories of the hope that people have inside them out. And I think that's really, really cool.
Tom Willis, he has another question here in the chat room. He says, do you keep a file somewhere with all the equipment list with serial numbers, model numbers for insurance purposes? Actually, yes. We have both a paper copy, because our senior pastors, they are a little bit old school when it comes to keeping paper copies of everything, which is not a bad thing. Any serial numbers that we get, Jeff, we will print them out. I have a digital folder that's backed up to the cloud with Carbonite. I use Carbonite, and I'm not endorsing them or anything. It's just what I use as an automatic backup.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Carbonite, I put everything up there when it comes to serial numbers, model numbers. What we also did, so like how everything is wired, how everything is set up is all up here. I don't have it written down, and that's just in my studio. That's how it is. Jeff, I'm sure that's how it is in your studio. You don't write it down.
Yeah, I can't even remember what I did, but yeah.
So, my guy that I trained, he was one of my youth. I had him since he was 15 years old, and he's now married and he has a child. I think he just turned 31. So I had him for quite some time, and he learned my ways. He learned how to do this stuff. He literally, I kid you not, you could go in there. He has a written out by hand piece of paper of instructions. When you get there first thing in the morning, this is what you do, step by step. It's not click here, click there. It says, hi, you're here this morning. You're in charge of the video. The first thing I want you to do is you're going to go over to this computer. It's the silver one, and you're going to click on this. And then you're going to, he literally, I mean, I bet you it's probably 7 or 8 pages long. He wrote a story about it, like literally, and he tells people.
That's somebody who's dealt with a volunteer. Yeah, that's somebody who's dealt with a volunteer workforce, for years, because you realize that, Bob says he's going to show up, but Bob gets sick, and that kind of thing. And somebody that's new, I mean, what better way to bring somebody in, but really make them feel like they've got a good chance of making it work well. That's smart.
Well, we work with a lot of teenagers. We work with we have a lady that is elderly, and I'm not picking on the elderly, so please don't say that. But a lot of the elderly don't like to get involved with technology. They can't stand technology. But she has her own notebook, Jeff. She literally will write down how to change MEs on the TriCaster, how to build MEs. Like she literally has, like anybody could take that notebook and run the TriCaster from it. She's that detailed.
That is awesome.
And she's really good at it. She's really good at. She understands the terminology. She understands. Oh, I can go in here and color correct the camera if it's a little off. I mean,
my gosh.
It's amazing that she does it. She'll help train the youth kids. If Cody's working with somebody else in the other room, and so it's just amazing to see he's going to that depth, because he knows when I was training him, we didn't know half the time who was going to show up and who wasn't.
Well, what's neat about that is that there's probably somebody in a church somewhere that's like, I'm so sick of having to color correct cameras.
Yeah.
And you never think about the fact that there are people that are not where you are. We've been in it long enough, for us to get excited. It takes something really kind of amazing.
Right.
But people get into it. I mean, I remember 1979, I was in 7th grade playing with reel-to-reel VHS black and white in the library. I'd stay after school every day to play with that camera. And I was amazed with it, like for months and months and months. And other people, when they're new in this, that's kind of how they are. And so some of the things that we might think are grunt work, or maybe things that, I really wish I could do it, that's actually a great story, because it talks about how other people may be able to come alongside and take something off of you that you don't really see value in, but they're like, man, I want to own that. And so that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I think that with him, he's always trying to take things to the next level. One of the big things that we're trying to do is automate when we switch, that the LED lights will change scenes and things like that. Because right now we have an older system for our LEDs, so we have to do a lot of workarounds with it. But the fact that he's trying to figure out a way to automate it, figuring out a way to kind of do that, really says a lot, because I just don't have the time. I really don't. I don't have the time. And when we kept adding on to those rooms, as you saw, like we originally were broadcasting in that room with the soundboard. After we moved up from that, there was a desk along the back. You guys didn't see where that window is. But then we outgrew that. And so then we built into that other area. But Jeff, you and I were discussing something before the show started, and I was telling you about it. We had a gentleman in the congregation who supposedly was an audio engineer, and me and Cody, when I was teaching him, we'd go up there on a Sunday, and all the audio would be all whacked out. I'd look at him. He's like, I didn't change anything, and I'd be like, well, I didn't change anything. He's like, yeah, you weren't here. We were like, something's happening. Like, we'd be in the middle of a song, you couldn't hear this person, you couldn't hear that person, whatever. So we had a Mac, we had an iMac, and there's an application that you could put on the iMac that if it sensed motion, it would turn the camera on and start recording until the motion stopped. So I was like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Well, that gentleman on a prayer night on a Wednesday night, either before people got there or after people left, would just go up and start moving faders to where he thought they should be without any sound being played, without any music, anything going on. He just started moving them. And we caught him. And it was at that moment we realized that's when we had to go to digital, because you had with the Behringer X32, you could lock the presets, you can call them up, and even though you can store them on the Behringer X32, we store them on a thumb drive. which gets put into the safe where we keep petty cache, backup hard drives to the TriCaster,
That's
to
smart.
vMix, all gets put into that safe. In the event somebody decides to feel the need that they are an expert in this field and haven't touched any of our equipment.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, because obviously there's a number of things in there. One of them is respect and, honor for the people that are doing it and things like that. But the other thing is that you're right. You can't mix audio without audio. And that is a whole other question. But what I love about the X32, as you said, it does have the profiles when you run the X32 edit software. I don't know if anybody knows that exists. I mean, it's a very cool piece of software. It gives you the virtual layout of the audio board on a computer screen, and you can literally wipe it every single time you use it and say pull from the X32 or pull from the computer, either one, and back up and reset everything. But no, that's troubling in a number of ways there. But I don't know really what they thought would be accomplished, but that's where that old mixer comes in down on the front again, make everybody think that's where it's mixing from. Let them mess it up, and then you kind of take a look at it.
No, that's where we're at. Like, we learned, myself and him, we learned to put things in place that people, we would have fixes. We would have ways of making sure we had a backup. I mean, even Jeff, to something like having a backup monitor, having a backup computer. Like, you noticed we had some of those computers, we could have done the same thing on one of the other computers, but we have vMix running on two separate machines in the event the one machine crashes. I mean, we don't know. It's an older Wirecast gearbox.
Yeah.
Here's a prime example, and here's a little tip for you all if you didn't know this already. I wasn't planning on showing this, but I'm gonna show it anyways to show you guys something here. Let me go to my one input and turn these off. So I did a show on Friday, my personal show, and here's my TriCaster monitor. I went to go start this up to do the show, and it didn't kick on. And the light went on. It came on. It said HDMI connection was there. Didn't show anything. I had no video like this. I went over. I have a switcher set up that I can. I had a switcher set up to where I can put up the Wirecast or the Wirecast gearbox, which is running vMix. I could put that up and switch on this monitor. Well, that wouldn't come up either. So this is this is the tip. So if you grab a flashlight and you're not getting a picture on here, a good way to test if your backlight is dead is shine a flashlight on it. Darken the room, shine a flashlight on it. You'll still see everything that's on the screen very faded. It would be like as if you turn the brightness down on your phone. And you'll be able to see. If you could see that, your troubleshooting is done. Your backlight died on your monitor. Time to get a new one. And that monitor was 10 years old. So fortunately, Jeff, I had my mobile rig monitor that I quickly plugged in for the show because I had it set up with the old DVI because that's how old the monitor was, right? So I quickly threw a converter on there to HDMI and I was up and running. But little troubleshooting tip for you guys out there that have monitors.
Yeah, and it's funny too because no matter how much you try to make a room stable, I'm the only one that uses my studio here. And inevitably, today we were talking, hey, the audio didn't sound quite right, and it took me a couple minutes to kind of figure out what was going on with it. And so you can imagine in a church setting what it's like when you've got 50 people that are coming through there every couple months, and it makes it a little bit more interesting with where all the meters and knobs and everything, they get to. But I wanted to give a shout out to Tom Willis. He was talking about, he said he wishes he had somebody to train. Tom, one of the things, I'm sure you probably are in a place that maybe there's not a lot of folks, but maybe that's an opportunity to begin looking outside of the walls and find out who in the families and people that may have an interest in some of these things and do an open house and say, hey, if anybody's ever been interested, I want to show you how cool this is, and begin to let people kind of catch that glimpse, because all of us that are watching this today have a passion for this particular area of life in terms of video and production and all the cool technology. And there's people out there that would want to work and I'm sure want to work with you on that. But it's one of those things where I think we have to be more proactive sometimes to find the right people.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point earlier on. It's not always about the gear. It's not about having the gear. but it's about reliability and stability, right? I think that's bigger than any amount of gear that you could have. Like, no matter how
Yeah.
much you plan for the worst, and that's what I always say. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I always say I plan for the worst and hope for the best, and that's just because it's inevitable something's going to happen, whether it's you forgot to turn on your social feed or you forgot to, you know,
Yeah, Facebook will restrict you. At my church on Sunday, the computer's now booting into BIOS, and it won't come
exactly.
out of it unless you kick it a couple times, and things like that. And these things are going to happen, But the other thing too, Steve, I think that is equally as important is, I know that 90% of what's being done is pretty predictable. We know what that looks like. But it's one thing too to not get so focused on the back end to build this Starship Enterprise in the
Right.
back end, and then you're putting out something that looks like cable access, not only by way of it technically, but again, maybe some of the content. And I just want to encourage. I know the pastors usually have the final say in these things, but I think it would be really good as we, as the people that understand the magic of how we tell a story digitally, that we begin to help them understand the importance of what that looks like, so that there are opportunities where maybe they say, you know what, we've been doing it this way forever, but maybe there's something, maybe we can try something. For instance, having hosts before the show starts instead of a 10-minute countdown. Maybe you've got people on microphones talking about, hey, what a great day it is. We're excited to be here, but we know too that some of you may have some things going on. We want to encourage you this morning to let you know that no matter who you are, you really matter. And you're basically speaking life into people, and you're getting people excited. You're saying where you've coming from.
Mhm.
And we all know this in our world, right? This is no-brainer stuff in the digital world, that you engage people so they know that they are visible and they matter. But churches a lot of times and this is something with my church, I love them dearly, but I feel like we're in this fear of lowest common denominator. We don't want to try too many things because somebody either will break it or they don't know how to do it. But there's nothing wrong with growing as you get better, and I think sometimes we get a little too fearful of trying anything new. And then what happens, Steve, 15 years later, other churches have learned how to tell a better story, and we're still locked into the one single camera, and it's, an old, the whole 9 yards there. So
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity there to help our leadership understand the vision and value of what we're doing.
Yeah, there was a question over here on Facebook from Marcos Rodriguez about what are we using? Are we using vMix Call to bring Jeff in, or any of the other guests that we sometimes have? I'm actually using a piece of software / hardware system called Live to Air, and I'll kind of show that real quick. And I apologize, it's not a really good camera angle, but you can kind of see this is over in my guest location. You can see the monitors mounted on the wall, so when I turn my head, I can actually see that Jeff is still on the call and he didn't drop off. But it's actually in my rack right here. It's that big box that's up there. You can buy just the software, but I'll pull it up here on the screen here as well. Yeah.
Well, Steve, I'll take a second to talk about this. I'm tightly tied in with John Mahoney and the family and the folks that create this wonderful hardware and software. Live to Air is really what I've called the sleeper product of the decade. It not only works terrifically for live streamers, but it's really even built for broadcast. It's being used on everything from America's Funniest Home Videos to other productions that you would know. And this particular version has got 6 parking spots, 6 channels if you want to get 6 on screen at one time, or 12. But the beauty behind this is really its ecosystem with the audience, because it will give you hundreds of people. You can have your whole audience in this particular system, and they can do real-time polling. They have the ability to anytime be pulled right into a show. And it does something, if you're technical enough to understand the word mix minus, it will do dynamic mix minus, meaning you never have to run a cable anywhere to get the people in this system to hear each other. You can even group them into individual groups. I do a game show. We're thinking about doing an online game show, so you can have groups of 5 or 10 or however many people you want that can only hear themselves. Then you can hit one button on your stream deck and bring everybody in beautifully. And of course, the quality is phenomenal. It's done a lot to really beat the daylights out of WebRTC, and it looks phenomenal. And so I'm a big fan of it. That's where it started from with me first, and that's what got me really wanting to be an advocate for it, because I'm a big believer that this software will be a game changer, especially if you're using other products like vMix Call and things like that, where you get no feedback. The last thing I'll say about this software that you and I did today, you have the ability to see me remotely, what I'm using for speakers, microphone, and camera, and you have the ability to adjust it, move me left or right, change the gamma, change the brightness. And so you can tell I'm excited about it, and it's because I really believe in John and his team that are building this. But it is a phenomenal piece of software, and this is brand new. The 6 and 12 is out, and they've even got some new surprises coming around the corner you're going to be excited about.
Yeah, and to answer the question too, you can use SDI. You can use, if you have the capture card built in. I'm using NDI. That's how I'm bringing everything. My whole studio is set up with NDI. My camera that you're seeing now is NDI. I've completely, Jeff, I've switched over to NDI 100%. Everything you're seeing, I mean, it's just the way to go right now over IP. So yeah, it's a great solution. It's great when you're bringing on non-technical people, where if you have to make an adjustment because they think they're on a microphone that they're not. I've had that on some of my game shows and video game shows that I do. So it's a great option, and you get the high quality with it as well.
Yeah, it's a game changer. And just because we don't know who all is watching, if you don't know what NDI is, it's a protocol that came out of New Tech that is really an industry standard now that lets you basically do broadcast audio and video over a local LAN, or even bigger than that. And so, gone are the days of having to find all your cables. You basically can plug in an Ethernet cable, and you can create studio monitors and your audio and video and all this kind of stuff, and do some really amazing things with it. And so if that's something you don't know anything about, let us know in the chat. I'm sure that we'll be able to put that in as a topic for one of the future shows.
Absolutely. And I want to pull this up too. Every Friday, I want to say it's at 2 o'clock, because I don't ever get to watch it.
2 o'clock Eastern.
2 o'clock Eastern. If you go to Streaming Alchemy, okay, on Facebook or on YouTube, this is John's YouTube channel. If you want to know how to do a lot of different things when it comes to automation, vMix, stuff that he's doing even with his product, this is a broadcast show. This is a show you want to tune into. You will learn a lot from the show. John is he's like the mad scientist when it comes to some of this stuff.
I call him the professor of live streaming.
The professor.
He really is. If you really want to go deep without it being overwhelming, John is your man. 2 o'clock Eastern every Friday.
He blows my mind with some of the stuff that he talks about. So I know some stuff, but yeah, John 100%.
Everybody else look bad. That's the way it is.
So there's a question here. How do you sync the audio and video? Are you referring to because of NDI, or because I don't really have to sync any of the audio in the system now, because I'm using a digital board. I do have to put a 59 millisecond sync delay in the TriCaster to ensure that the audio video match up. But outside of that, I don't have to do anything. Like when the live to air comes in, it's perfect.
Yeah, and real quick to explain that, because your audio doesn't go through nearly as much processing as the video does, so it shows up a little sooner. And so you got to sometimes tell it to wait a second, or a millisecond, to really kind of line it up and everything like that. But live to air, if he was talking about that, it takes care of all that stuff. So
yeah, live to air. I'm going to put the link in the chat room here for Streaming Alchemy, and then I'll also put it in here for Neural Net, because I know the spelling, Jeff. The spelling is kind of weird for some people.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him. He was down here in my studio. I did a show here in my studio with him last week for his show, and they're soon going to have live-to-air.tv up and running, so it's easy to find. But yeah, it's neuralnet.com.
So
with a G.
So you guys, you can have that. John's a good friend of PTZOptics here. He checks out all our cameras. In fact, he gets into some in-depth shows about some of the cameras that we have here. So I posted links in both the Facebook and the YouTube chat. So feel free to grab that and go give John a like and subscribe, and tell him that we sent you over. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. He'll be like, "Oh no, that's Steven sent you over." Oh man, no, not just kidding. But yeah, wealth of knowledge. He's helped me out of a lot of predicaments in the studio. Just having somebody else to talk to that understands the gear that I'm running. So it works out good. So any other questions that you guys have, feel free to throw them in here. Jeff, real quick, while we're waiting on any kind of questions, you brought up an interesting question about, I should say a scenario, because you have a lot of knowledge. and yet sometimes you could find in churches, if somebody has a lot of knowledge, sometimes people are afraid to use that knowledge and further what they're doing. You've seen that in places that you've gone to, and you have a knowledgeable person that's just kind of sitting in the audience because the guy that they have in charge really isn't interested in changing his ways, right?
Yeah, and it's not even really, I think, prevalent within churches. One of the things I do with Fire Media TV, which is, again, this is what my the studio looks like here for today. I do a lot of consulting in the fire rescue world, not only doing their marketing, recruiting campaigns, but really what I really feel led to do was to speak life into these environments where there was so much trauma and tragedy and all these different divisional things that go on. And it really, a lot of it comes down to people. All of us are trying to find 4 things in life. I really believe it's purpose, identity, security, and acceptance. And so if those things are not balanced in a healthy way, a lot of times what happens are we begin to want to one-up somebody. We create a totem pole in our head. Well, that person is there and I'm over here and I'm higher, or anything along those lines. And I've always said totem poles really don't exist in that way. And so, yes, people can get in a situation where they're either threatened a little bit or they're afraid also to, in an unhealthy environment, Steve, to get called out. It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And how many of us in the tech world know people like that? They want to tell you that you need to move the fader that millisecond down because it's going to make the guitar sound better. Those things are nonsense. The reality is, if we're all really rising together, if that's really what this is all about, and it's not about us, it's about a greater vision and a greater movement toward the promised land, we've got to develop teams in a way that they're so tight and cohesive that one member going out, it's like the internet. That IP address goes down, but the internet still works. Same thing with your team. And we've got to build into people that way. And that's a whole other thing, because you get people many times, and I'm not being harsh here, but whether it's in the fire systems or it's in work and relations, or even in the church, you've got people that like control. It's their little slice of the pie. Well, this is not the world for that. There's other places you can go to find that, like, join the National Guard or something. But we, a lot of times, I think, create more misery for ourselves than we really need to. And so I think as we grow as teams, and as you're somebody who is developing teams and finding new people, give everything you've got. You can never replace yourself with your own knowledge, because you're always going to know more than what you're teaching. As you learn new things, you're going to pick it up faster than the people you're training. So there's no threat there or anything like that. And so, yeah, I think that I really think that you're right. People a lot of times keep things close to the vest. They're afraid to change, or they're afraid that something's going to break that they're not going to know how to fix on a Sunday morning. That's a different story, and that's I respect that. But at the same time, I think we can stretch a little more and do much bigger, bolder things and tell bigger, better stories to the community, and do things that are so out of the box it might actually get people to really think about what you're trying to tell them.
Yeah, and I was watching the chat room here. The comment came up, and I guess I need a little bit more context. He says, Eric says, I have audio coming from the chapel sound system, and the video is IP. Now, if you're using video over IP, like with RTMP or RTSP, yes, then you will have an inherent delay. I mean, that's inevitable. You could have anywhere from a 35 to 55 second or more latency. When you're using NDI, though, it's a lot different, and depending on the distance that you have to go. Now, if you can't change the way that you're doing it, and you have no interest in changing the way you do it, and that's completely fine. I'm not saying you should. There's a product. I own 2 of these. Okay, this is a Behringer Shark, and they might have a newer model, but this is one that I pulled up. Jeff, I'm sure you're very familiar with this product.
Yep.
This is, not only does it destroy feedback or have a
Always
preamp,
a good thing.
but it has a huge delay. Like, you can set a delay in the audio, all based inside here. This is something I want to say it's about $100-$150. I don't know. They might have a newer model. But this is the Shark FBQ100. And like I said, Behringer may have a newer version of this, but I used these for many, many years, because when I was using the Skype TX system, Jeff, when Marty went overseas and we did that production where he was in, where was he at? He was in Russia? I forget where he was at.
Oh, yeah, it was Russia or Germany or something.
Yeah, it was,
like that.
Germany. Yes, it was Germany. And we were doing a live production, me, him, and Mark Rogers. We had a delay that was coming in from him, and there was nothing I could do. So I picked up a Shark. We managed to sync the audio and fix the issue. So this might be something that would solve your issue. You put that in line. There's an input and the output on the XLR. You put that in there, and then you can sync the audio that way. That's a way to do it. Honestly, and I think Jeff would agree, moving to NDI, lowering your latency, that's going to solve a lot of problems and make life a little bit easier when it comes to audio video sync.
Yeah, you've got an analog source and a digital IP source there competing with each other. And you're right, you got to kind of get one of them to slow down enough to wait for the other one, but that box would definitely help.
So it's an inexpensive patch, we'll say, for that.
Yes.
But guys, we're going to have to wrap this up. Really appreciate it. You can always send in questions. salttalk@ptzoptics.com is the email address. Greg Terry is on the front lines. He is still in Ukraine. I think he's flying back Friday. I think that's when he's supposed to be back. So next month, he will be back joining us, and we only got 2 more shows left of this year. I can't believe we're about ready to say that. November will be the last show of this year, and we'll bring it back in January. A lot of us, we take off between Christmas and New Year's, so the end of the month just doesn't work. So we're going to use that time to just enjoy friends and family. But 2 more shows. Greg should be back with us, and Jeff, I would love to have you back on the show. I think you bring a lot of insight to the industry, and I really appreciate you jumping on here.
Oh, well, Greg is an all-star, and it's just an honor to fill in his big shoes, so it was great to be here.
If you guys are interested, you need help with your house of worship setup, and you just don't have anybody that's technically savvy to answer the questions, you can go to JeffInHighDef.tv. The URL is in the lower third right there. Look up Jeff, give him a shout. He'll get on with
say
you.
Hello.
Yeah. Let's see what he can do for you, right?
I'd be happy to help any way I can.
So you guys can check it out, and you can also follow him on any social media platforms. JeffInHighDef, just look it up. That's his name pretty much everywhere on the interwebs. And guys, I really appreciate you guys coming out and spending your morning with us here, and your break is over. Now it's time for you to get back to work, and I have to get back to work myself. So I really appreciate it. We'll be back next month with another topic here. Send those topics in. What are you interested in? What are you really struggling with? What do you need help with in your house of worship? We take those topics and we put them out there, and if we can't answer them, we will bring on experts that can help you and that can answer those questions for you. Like last month on audio, we had Chris. Chris was a tremendous guest. Was able to walk you through a lot of different audio scenarios and how to prevent audio catastrophes. And so send us that email. And also, guys, tomorrow, join the PTZOptics crew for the live show. And we'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your week.